Hello parents and guardians, and welcome back to another Discipleship Debrief. This past Sunday, our youth group was going through Mark chapter 15. We are nearly to the crucifixion narrative. We actually stopped one verse short of the actual crucifixion. We've still been going through Jesus' various trials and his mockings and really trying to give them their proper understanding, give them their proper time to really appreciate what Christ went through us other than just the cross, right? Leading up to the cross even. So first we talked about, in the first 6 verses of our passage, we talked about Jesus before Pontius Pilate. And Jesus' interview with Pontius Pilate is very interesting. If you read all 4 gospel accounts, they have this very interesting dynamic, Jesus and Pontius. And it eventually leads to Pontius Pilate actually declaring Jesus innocent and being amazed by him. And we kind of ask, well, why is Pontius Pilate amazed by him? And contextually in the passage, Pontius Pilate is amazed to see Christ rebuked and mocked and slandered and be silent. And he can see his innocence, and he can also see that he's just accepting this rebuke and this mock and this slander. And he's amazed by that. And so we talked about how Jesus really shows Pontius Pilate a brief glimpse of his true character. We don't know if Pontius Pilate became a believer or anything. We do know that he still was a bad enough man to hand Christ over to crucify him despite declaring him innocent. But we do know that in their interviews, Pontius Pilate saw Jesus briefly as an innocent man, not deserving of death. And then after that interaction, we see the people choosing Barabbas over Christ. And this passage right here was why I felt like we could not go straight into the crucifixion narrative and skip over this, because there is so much meat to the idea of the people choosing Barabbas over Christ, choosing this false Christ, and really the way that Barabbas is the antithesis of everything that Jesus truly is. Barabbas even means son of the Father. And so Barabbas is like a false son of the Father, right? Where he is it in name alone, and Christ is it in the full true meaning of it. Christ was arrested as a robber and an anarchist. You can read about that in Mark chapter 14. But he was innocent. He was a peaceful rabbi. Barabbas was an anarchist and a robber and had been convicted of murder in a rebellion against Rome. And the people choose Barabbas over Christ. So we talked about that. We talked briefly about how that still happens to this day, where if we were given the choice, we would probably choose every other sinful person in this world over our sinless Lord. And it is just a character of our humanity. It's truly depressing. And it's depressing to see it in that little microcosm there, where they have the opportunity to release an innocent man and they choose not to. And then the last thing we looked at was the mockery of Christ. When the soldiers mock him and they put the cloak on him and they put the crown of thorns on him and they put the reed in his hand and then proceed to beat him with it. And just the fact that people who hate Christ, they twist his identity. They take the things that are true about him and they turn them into mockeries of him. And then that's where we left off. And we'll have a couple-week break before we actually do get to the crucifixion narrative, but it is Easter this week. As you're watching this, it is Easter this week. And I'm reminded as we go through these passages, because I even told the students, we've had basically the same points, if you will, like the 3-point sermon. We've had the same points the last 4 weeks. Honestly, we have, because we've been going through this narrative fairly lengthily. And so we've been talking about Jesus and everything that he endured. That's been our main overview. Look at what Christ endured for you. And we've been talking about that week after week. And even though there are differences and the story is very interesting and it deserves time to breathe, that is the main point for the last 3 to 4 weeks. And I admitted to the students it can be easy to get caught up in this idea of, I've heard this enough. I'm past this. Bruce talked at Bible study last week for the men. He talked about overhearing the gospel and how we grow dull to it and how we grow numb to it, and asking, am I still hearing this just because it's where I am, or am I actually being affected by it? And so with Easter coming up this week, and with us being in the Passion narrative for the last 4 weeks anyway, this is your opportunity as a parent, as a guardian, as the main discipler in the home, to really emphasize to your student that there is no overhearing the gospel, that we ought to be affected by it every time we hear it. And so I would ask you, student, a simple question, especially regarding Easter this week, a very important question. Are you still affected by the gospel? Are you daily affected by the gospel? Do you understand the gospel more and more every time you hear it? Do you trust the gospel? Do you grasp the gospel more every single time you hear it? Or are you zoning out when the gospel is presented? Are you shrugging off the gospel? Are you treating it like it's too commonplace? My hope is that, especially this week, when we will hear the gospel presented a lot, my hope is that we can cling to the gospel. And every time it is presented, whether it is 5 minutes or 45 minutes, we can listen to it with joy and excitement and be affected by it. I hope that for your students. I hope that for you watching this. I hope that for myself, for our leadership team, that we may be a people so affected by the gospel that we are effective in producing the gospel and going out and making more Christians. So that is all I have for you all this week. There won't be youth group on Easter Sunday, and then the week after we'll have an event. So a couple weeks off of actual teachings, but I still look forward to seeing you all and ministering to your students. Please, if you have any questions, reach out. Have a good week.